I'm going to tackle a practice whiteboard exercise with a bit of help from AI. So here's the exercise. You can see the instructions and a mock-up. I've published this to the Figma community. It's one exercise in a collection of several. I'll share a link in the description. But I've also asked AI how it would approach this exercise, and you can see the answer here on the right. So I'm going to use this approach to try to tackle this exercise. So I'll give myself 30 minutes to take it on. So let's get going. Welcome. In this exercise, we want to see how you might onboard to a project that's already in progress. We're building a SaaS platform to help mid-sized businesses manage their operations, payroll, HR, compliance, and performance reviews. The product will include AI features that save time and improve efficiency. A designer and PM have already come up with a concept, which you can see on the right. Evaluate the concept mockup. We'd love to know your thoughts about what works and what doesn't. What would you add or remove and why? How can we use content to make this design better? You have 30 minutes to complete this exercise. Looks like I've got a workspace here to capture all my work. So AI says I should start by framing the task, that I should pretend that I'm with an interviewer. And I think this is a great way to practice whiteboard exercise. So I'll imagine that I have an interviewer here with me that I can ask questions. So I might say, what's the scope? Am I just focusing on the content, or am I also concerned with UX? And we can imagine the interviewer says, content's the focus. If I want to do any UX related work, make any UX recommendations, I can do that. But really, the content is what I'm going to be judged on. Who's the target user? So I'm going to say, I'm going to go ahead and answer the questions in here, right? I'm going to take notes. So scope, content, user. These are going to be HR managers. Okay, let's assume that I've asked the interviewer who the target users are or who the target user is. The interviewer has said HR managers. Okay, what portion of the experience are we focusing on? So, is this mobile, desktop? Is it a web app? So I can say like platform. This is a web app. Maybe that's the answer I got from the interviewer, who's not really here, but we're pretending. What's the business or user goal of this screen? So I might say, do I want to put this in the, I'm going to go ahead and put this here. User goal is to create and manage performance reviews for an employee. Okay, that's the user goal. That's why this screen exists, this particular mockup. Okay, business goal. That's a user goal. Let's say they also gave me like a business goal. Let's see. And that business goal is, I don't know, to get HR managers engaged with the product, right? That's the goal of this particular feature. And we could refine this if we want, but I'm just going to leave it, or I could refine it. Okay, so according to AI, doing all this helps me avoid rewriting in a vacuum. Not sure exactly what that means, but I generally, if I were to get a project like this, be introduced to a project like this after a mock-up has already been done in the real world, not in an interview, I'd want to know who users were and business goals and all that, but I would have that information in a product brief or in a Jira ticket, something. Okay, so the next step, according to AI, is to scan the interface and look for sections. So I've got a header, I've got navigation. I've got a little card in here, and in the card, I've got, it looks like 3 sections. One with just information about the person, like identifying information. So I'm looking at a team member named John, good worker, record of the performance reviews that have been done, when they've been done, the status, so they're complete, incomplete. I guess I don't know what the other possibilities are yet. I could ask about that. Looks like I can create a review, generate a review, and then I've got a section where it looks like I can adjust payroll settings for this person, which could be dangerous. Maybe I'm dangerous. Maybe I have a lot of power here over John Goodworker's pay. But AI suggests I should look at the components, what components are present. So there's, I don't know what you would call this component here, but there are drop downs or select menus, there are input boxes. And so most of my interactions, if I'm an HR manager using this, my interactions happen via select menus. So what feels intuitive or confusing? I don't really know, like how I got here, for example, right? Compliance staff directory. What do these links have to do with this? Should there be another link in this menu that goes to here? What's this page all about? There's nothing that sets the page expectations. As a content designer, that's a thing that really stands out to me. Okay, so this is just an attempt to build an understanding. So I think I'm ready to move on to what's working well. So I think what I'll do is what works, right? I'm going to go ahead and create a section and note like this. I think I'm going to follow this list format to record things that work and don't work and so on. Okay, so start with strengths. Okay. I think it's a clean interface that doesn't overwhelm. And I could apply usability heuristics here if I wanted to. For the sake of time, I'm just going to do my own thing. But I generally will use heuristics when I get a new project that's where designs have already started. My starting point often is a heuristic evaluation, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to try to stick very closely to AI suggestions. Okay, so strengths. It's a clean interface, doesn't overwhelm. Let's see. I think there's a consistent use of title case for microcopy. And I'm going to just call out like the labels, right? Like all these team member performance reviews, payroll settings, right? That's all microcopy. Those are all labels. I like them. Just in terms of how consistent they are with title case. I worked on products where that's not the case. Okay, what else works here? Title, department, in terms of content. So I'm not sure, but I'm gonna jump into what doesn't work, because sometimes you got to move around a little bit. Okay, so what doesn't work, I think, is I don't know how I got here. What happens next, or what happens next. So I'm going to address this. I think I've already got an idea of how to address that. Let's see. I really don't know who I am as a user just by looking at this mockup, right? Usually in product like this, I'd probably have like an avatar here or a link where I could get to my account information. So I can't access my profile or account settings. And I think I'd probably want to do that. As an HR manager, I might want to, especially if, let's say, these settings down here were disabled for some reason. Maybe that's a thing in account settings. I don't have permissions. I'd like to be able to view that. What else doesn't work? Okay. There's no page title. So, in other words, there's no content to set expectations about what happens on this page. And so I'd want to do something about that. What else doesn't work? Let's see. Compliance staff directory. I think that the navigation items are a bit unclear. So what does compliance mean? If I'm an HR manager, I suppose I probably know that. But let's just make sure, right, by recording that, right, that I'm not sure that works. Okay, so team member, staff directory, performance reviews. AI can help you draft reviews, but you are responsible for accuracy. So that message, the AI warning sounds a bit harsh. Maybe even, I don't know, accusatory, right? It's on you. This is your fault. Generate with AI. Okay. What else does AI want me to do here? Okay, they're talking about clarity. Are the labels self-explanatory? Do the CTAs drive expected actions? Really, the only CTAs I see here are new review and generate with AI. What are they asking? Do they drive the expected action? Are repeated elements necessary? Elements that are repeated are like these statuses. I think they're necessary. There could be other ways to do this, right? You could maybe only show completed. Maybe you could have some filtering in here, and so you could select the kind of status you want to see. I want to see only completed reviews, but I'm not going to mess with that. Let's see. Tone and voice. How are the tone and voice? I've kind of touched on that a little bit with this AI warning. I think it's a little bit too harsh. This is for HR managers. They're doing serious work here, messing with people's money. So I think a somewhat serious tone or a bit of terseness is probably okay. Recognizable patterns. Sorry, I'm looking at strengths again. Hierarchy, scannability. So the thing I said about this, the page expectations, the page title, right? That I think goes to scannability, and that's why this is not really scannable, in my opinion. Okay. Terminology consistency. Are status labels, action verbs, and nouns aligned? What nouns do we have in here? I mean, compliance is a noun, staff, directory, team member. Is a team member part of the staff? Right? That might be, what do or how do team members and staff relate? Are they the same? It's unclear. I just want to write that down to make sure I get that recorded. Okay. What else would I do here? Let's go ahead. I'm going to move into, so they suggest, or AI suggests section by section. So there's nothing in this header. I've address that via my comment about like the avatar, the account settings. There could be a logo in there. I don't think that's a super important thing just for this critique or exercise. But navigation, I touched on that. This little card, no page title. Other than that, I know I can set a review. One thing I don't know, if I make settings in here, does that automatically affect John's paycheck? Because this is performance reviews. So I'm going to say it's uncertain how changes to pay settings affect the employee's pay. Is there any automation? It's kind of what I'm getting at here, right? If I go in here and I change this to 180 because John's doing all right, does John start getting a bigger paycheck? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Got 14 minutes. I think that's more than enough time just with the scope of this exercise. So, turn my observations into solutions. I like that. Think about content's role in UX, prioritize recommendations, narrate. Okay, so these are things I should be like narrate my thinking as you go. I've kind of been doing that. I think that's a super important thing people want to see in whiteboard exercises. They want to hear you think, so they want to know how your process works. They actually want to see your process in real time. So I'm going to just create a section called recommendations. And I'm going to say add a page title. So I've hit on what works and what doesn't. Did I see something in here about adding or removing? Oh, additions, edits, removals. I'm going to address the adding and removing via recommendations. Okay, so add a page title to set expectations. Okay, so that it could be something like, well, this is not just performance reviews. We did say the user goal was to create and manage performance reviews. So add a page title, performance reviews. That actually it's making me think that information architecture is maybe a little screwy now. So add this, and then given that this whole page really is about performance reviews, this section now looks a little wacky to me. So this might be change the performance review section heading to like maybe history, right? We're just trying to change the way this information is organized so it makes a little bit more sense. To history. And I'm going to bold everything that is UI copy. I could use quotes. I'm not going to. Okay. So that kind of takes care of setting the expectations. I think it sort of clarifies a little bit better what's happening down here because the whole page is about performance reviews. But if I just want to know what reviews have already been done, I can go down here. And then do new review and generate review. Do those CTAs still work, right? If this is history now. So it could be something else. Could be review management or I'm not sure what. But I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to touch on some other areas so no page title. Let's see. Add add an account, add an avatar that takes the user or takes users to their account settings. And we'll say add an avatar link in the header. And that's going to address that issue. It's actually a usability heuristic. I think it's user control and freedom. I said I wasn't going to touch on that really, so I'm just going to mention it real quickly. Okay. So page title, navigation. Ideally, you know what I might do? Insert breadcrumbs at the top or under the header, so it's obvious where the user has been, what they're looking at now, and where they can go. And the page title really tells them what they're looking at now, but the breadcrumbs, you know, that tells them where they are in relation to other things. And then I would really actually like to know what words human resource managers use for things like compliance, staff, or employees, or team members, or whatever they are. Okay, so really what I'd love to do is do some research to find out what words HR managers use to talk about compliance, employees, and performance reviews. Use findings to create more descriptive navigation items and microcopy. So I don't know, maybe, you know, payroll settings, or team member actually is a thing. Like here, this says team member, down here it says department. So are they part of a department or a team, right? And I could mention that in my inconsistencies. Let's see. Navigation items are a bit unclear. Is John, you know, part of a team or a department? There are labels, or there's a label for each, and that kind of doesn't make sense. Okay, we got 7 minutes left. So AI is saying I should propose edits or enhancements. Okay. Oh, another thing I would do is use like softer language or wording for the AI warning. Maybe something like AI can help draft reviews, but or I don't know, be sure to review them for accuracy, something like that. And that's UI copy. Also, breadcrumbs, research, create more descriptive names. I would create a glossary for this product to ensure consistent use of terminology throughout. And that's going to go to item number 7. I realize, too, doing this, I'm not asking questions anymore of my interviewer. And so it makes me wonder, like, how would I be collaborating if I had an interviewer with me right now what would I do so that person's not just sitting there? I'm not quite sure. I don't know how these, like, what the best thing to do is in this sort of situation. And I'd love to know what people think, especially hiring managers. What would you do? What would you recommend? Like, what are you looking for right here, right? Because this whole channel is all about filling in those gaps for content designers who need to prepare for interviewers or for interviews, filling in gaps for UX writers. I don't have a lot of resources. I'm trying to create them now. So hopefully this will prompt some thoughts, some comments from hiring managers and teams. Okay, so prioritize, high impact. Yeah, that's kind of sounds like a cool thing to do. So, maybe should I do it that way or should I do it another way? Should I do it by like just arranging these? So this is the simple addition of a heading, change performance review to history or similar. That'll depend on our research and avatar. So really, these things I think are high priorities. So these, we're going to do a couple easy fixes, and then we'll do, whoops, sorry, add a page title. We'll do some research and then we'll do some easy fixes. Okay, so we need to know what words our HR managers are using. Then we can adjust the page. We can add a page title. We can adjust microcopy and our AI warning, all that accordingly. Our research is going to tell us what we should do there. All right, let's see what's next. Narrate. I think I've done that. Confusing. Okay, so AI suggests that I organize ideas into like categories, I suppose. High impact. I've actually just ordered them from like most important to least important, I guess. Not exactly, but I think the research is a super important piece. If you're going to speak the language of your users, right, you need to know what that language is. So I really think that's the key element here in making this like super usable for HR managers. We've got to know what words they use. So that I think is it. That's the exercise. If I were here with a reviewer, maybe with an interviewer, I could say, okay, these are my recommendations. Here's why I think we need to do the research. Here's how these other elements, the others recommendations, relate to that research and so on. And then maybe I could ask if there were any questions and we would wrap up. But I would love to know from people who design these exercises and put candidates through them, what would you look for? What would you expect? And how does this approach compare? So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something useful.